Namaste, welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is Kushalmehra. I did not know that Abbas and I were actually, we are future teller. We can predict what's going to happen in the future. 3 months ago, Abbas और मैंने were the Mughals evil करके एक detailed podcast की थी. And little did we know that the government was talking about changing anything in the text. It was a fairly balanced discussion about the Mughals in general, but obviously for those who are not following the news, I think insert text mein there were specific changes that were made, and they were very specific, and some of the chapters were changed, and some information about the Mughals was changed in the context of now the textbooks cover specifically, if I know now, the massacre at Chittorgarh, the enslavement of native Indians, citizens of India, by the Mughals, the destruction of the temples, the economic cost of what the Mughal empire had on India, and a few other things that are mentioned. It basically does not show the Mughals in a very pretty light like it did in the past, which led to a hissy fit from regular sections. It was you know it was quite expected, but one particular incident on Aaj Tak and India Today really kind of as they say, set the cat amongst the pigeons, where from what I understand, she's a PhD, and I don't know her name, and correct me if my name is I genuinely know, I'm just going off my memory. I think it's some Sharma, R se naam hai, some Ruchika Sharma lady or something of that sort. She's on YouTube. She is a PhD. So um, I don't believe in credentialism, but she's a PhD, and I will appreciate the fact that she's a PhD. Whether she has a PhD in history or in gender studies, I have no idea what her PhD is in. Like if she's a PhD in gender studies, then I'm the Incredible Hulk, and I don't care. Also, it does not mean that she's the only repository of knowledge and other people can't know. But there was a very specific incident that happened on India Today, and then Abbas has made a small presentation slide where she made very peculiar comments, as you see on the slide, about Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And now, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is a sensitive subject at best for all of India, and at its absolute peak in the state of Maharashtra, where I belong from, or I'm from. I mean, I still am because I live 5 months of the year in Maharashtra. So here we are now. Before we get into that entire slideshow that Abbas has prepared, I'll hand it over. First of all, I'll thank him for coming again, and I'll ask him to make some opening remarks, and then we'll get into the presentation.
Thank you, Kushal bhai, and a very good evening to all the guests. And of course, I have stopped watching news for very obvious reason. I try to spend more time reading, deciphering manuscript, trying to learn new language, etc., whatever, which can add some value. And it's again such a coincidence that again these people, whether it's Akbar, Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, Babur, Humayun, everyone make the way to the drawing room, whether it's through some time show at India Today or whether it is at Republic, everywhere it's going to be Babur, Akbar, and whatnot. So then again, we become relevant. The people who deal with this, the skeletons of those people, they have the Timurids, whom I call. And to be very frank and honest, Kushal bhai, I was not aware that this ruckus is going on TV. I knew that NCERT has brought some change, which is a good one, makes a lot of sense. But I was not aware that such kind of sense of history is going to be brought on table where people will go on to quote secondary or rather the tertiary sources, and in fact won't read the sources completely. They will just pick and choose. And in fact, I was surprised that Rajdeep went on to say that why Shivaji Maharaj invaded Bengal and whatnot, which never was the case. Nevertheless, it never happened. So all sorts of things are happening, and everyone suddenly becomes historian. Whether it's you name him or name the person, and he's a historian to tell you whether, again, it comes from both the side, whether Mughals were good, bad. Everyone has an opinion, and so I'm sure that we are going to be quite significant here to some extent, at least, if not to a lot, where we can at least set the perspective right. We can throw some light about some sources and ask people to look at it and really ask the question to themselves whether the way the Timurids were always represented as, mostly like, it starts with the monochromatic Mughal Azam, Pyar Kiya To Darna Kya Se, and then goes on to Hrithik Roshan becoming Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, and then we have the legendary the series called Empire, and so on and on. But nowhere this hint of them being very barbaric or brutal comes to the front line. It's always that they were the forebearer of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. But even if we take that with a pinch of salt or whatever, see, Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, if we have to relate to it, has to be with Dara Shukuf. If at all it makes some sense, because Ganga certainly is revered in Hinduism, and so is Yamuna Mata. We revere them as Mata, and Dara Shikoh was surely working on the Upanishads. He had this thing towards, whether he was ex-Muslim or not. That's a different debate. Many people say that perhaps he had become an ex-Muslim. Oh, whatever it may be, but he surely had something to contribute to our tradition, the Bharatiya tradition. So it has to, but he never found that elaborate place anywhere. Like these people say, when I say these people, as in the apologists for the Timurid, they say that we need to take the good from them too. Of course, we should take good from everyone, and I have always made my stand very clear that Babur was a great poet. I still admire that he was a very good poet. Now, the very good thing to take away or about the syncretism, if we have to take it, comes from Dara Shikoh, but Dara Shikoh finds not even one chapter anywhere. So it was not even that we are trying to take something good. What we were just trying to do is that just massage the thing in a way that the all the barbaric acts start looking to be a great sense of syncretism. And I'm glad that NCRT has taken a step ahead. To be very honest, again, I have not skimmed into the NCRT text to that extent, and I'm sure that it does not matter to me either. Because I'm already dealing with the manuscript, etc., and everything. I am writing the books on them. But as I hear from the reaction from both the sides, something really has happened. The volcano has erupted, and that eruption has again started the debate, which is for good. The more and more we debate and discuss, this will at least set the thing in the right direction, at least for the people who are sitting on the fence, yet to decide whether they are good or bad, not you know taken ahead with some colors that I belong to this or I belong to that. More or like the bear of the truth will definitely benefit from these discussions.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question then. I think the confusion as far as Rajdeep Sardesai was concerned was with the factual mention of Shivaji Maharaj. Now, Tripur Daman Singh has written a book on taxation by the Peshwas later on, far, 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 far later on, after Shivaji, Sambhaji Raje, all of them actually. This is during the Peshwai that the taxation issue started erupting in the Rajputana areas, and obviously in Bengal too, where I forgot the name of his book. He shows how the British would endow titles upon them. Like this is like the modern day version of मैं तुझे एक elite club का membership दे दूंगा या मैं तेरे को एक kind of पदवी दे दूंगा, and that's how the British used to manage these people. While the Peshwas would tax and not do these things because it was not a cultural thing for them and they did not believe in those things, and that led to a lot of resentment at a surface level. But that resentment was not cultural. It was not as if the Peshwas thought the Bengalis were aliens. Those the while on the other hand, the Mughals or the Timurids, as you like to call them, they were clearly looking at people as aliens, till the extent that they always felt that Persia and a land very categorically outside India was their homeland. And they always aspired to send money to that homeland. So so all these things are not mentioned by 9 p.m. anchors who are apologists for these things. The second point that bothers me in this entire issue is that we I use this example every time we talk about the British in very critical terms in our textbooks, and this is under Jawaharlal Nehru too. It's not like the BJP did this, but we never take it out on the white man walking on the street. So why is this insinuation constantly hurled at the average non-Muslim Indian, that if the non-Muslim Indian finds out about what the Timurids, who happen to be Muslim, did to the Indian under the name of politics and religion? And it's very hard to gauge how much of it was religion. Like in the case of Aurangzeb, it might be a lot more religion, less politics. In the case of some other ruler, like your book on Babar is very balanced. Part one, I mean, part two, to abhi padna baki hai, but part one is very balanced on Babar. Like, in fact, eventually Babar बेवड़ा हो जाता है last में social pressure में बेचारा. I felt bad for him as someone who does not drink. So, uh, and Babar had obviously some same-sex tendencies also, and that's fine. I mean, ठीक है भाई, तुमको जो करना है करो. But the point is that the discussion on 9 p.m. is clearly under a very condescending assumption that the average Hindu, the moment they start thinking that Aurangzeb sucked, or Timurids were a bad time and they actually sucked our economy, did not destroy it, somehow we'll start going on the streets and shouting and screaming at the average Indian Muslim. Why?
That's rightly pointed, and the problem is that most of the times uh, history gets connected with the politics, and politics is all about the driving of the societal causes. And when it's about the societal causes, religions come to the picture. Somewhere or other, all the politicians want to play the religious card, and somehow that really makes the way to the hatred for somebody or anybody, and that's where the bigotry seeps in. And but larger picture here lies is that somehow India has never been able to come on terms with its past. Somehow, it at times it's always good to say that yes, bad happened, accept it, and perhaps then the people would move on. For very long, this rosy tale of before the British, everything was hunky dory. The Timurids or the Mughals say when Bahadur Shah Jafar was crowned as the leader of the our first war of independence, 1857. So that's where it starts, and that's how the romanticism of the rule which existed before happens. And it further goes on to talk about the taxation system of Khilji and whatnot. Like there are people who have gone on record to say that the taxation system of India improved during the Khilji, and our economy was really made well. They saved us from Mongols and whatnot. A lot of things do happen. And when suddenly, say, I don't know what term would be there, whether it's a Hindutva surge or that sense of awakening when the internet has come to your discourse, and you suddenly start reading the manuscripts at archive.org. Not every manuscript is available, but at least many are available. Then that urge of having told so many lies, and at times it leads to aggression too. In fact, when I myself read a lot of things, my blood boils, but I have to stay calm. And it is bound to happen that when you are reading in standard 8 or rather standard 9, a history book which is talking about the greatness of the Mughal architecture and how great the Mughals were, and then suddenly you realize that it was not a syncretic culture, but in fact there was capital punishment if a Hindu tried to marry a Muslim. It existed, and I figured out these documents. It's happening in the reign of the Jahangir. It happening in the reign of Shah Jahan. And somehow these rulers are always considered to be someone who gave the symbol of love. Jahangir, as you see it, immediately the image what pops in my mind is Dilip Kumar in as Salim in the monochromatic Mughal Azam, and he's mad behind Anarkali and
यार
whatnot.
गाने तो अच्छे थे.
Yes, of course, and that's the power of the art. Art has that thing that it can
Yeah.
dive you into that romanticism to anything. Even if someone is shown just the painting of Hitler and not told the truth about what he did, then perhaps maybe people will start appreciating Hitler as somebody who was an artist who never cared to. So art has that power which can really be a great cover up, or it's the white paint over anything. It's a whitewashing
Yeah.
element, and somehow Mughal Azam did this. And so again, I'm not somebody who calls for the banning of Bollywood. I'm completely anti-ban culture, but what Bollywood did for very large extent is that it tried to romanticize the Mughlai Tahjeeb to a great extent, and within that glorification, somehow the Bharatiyaness which always existed, because everyone, somebody or other, was always fighting with this Timurids, and it was not just for the land. Many times it was also for the Swabhiman. It was not just that I want my Samrajya. Of course, people did care for Samrajya, people did care for their own land, but they had this Swabhiman that they are the foreigners, and we have to defeat them, and we have to get our land, not be conquered by them. Like, I'll just give one very short example, because Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was being spoken about, and in fact, and Karnataka was in picture. So in Karnataka, he really brought it took away the slavery, because he said to the Dutch that, you know, uh, you had been trading with the Moors ruled, but I am the master now. Now the slavery cannot be allowed. You can't just trade off the male and the female. So the point I'm trying to make is that somehow most of the Indian rulers, they were very principled, and perhaps this also comes from the geography, because perhaps India has always been like that. Whichever king you pick, you will mostly find a lot of principled stands. Of course, there are exceptions like Ashoka and whatnot, but largely the rulers have been very principled. But the moment you look at the rule of the Middle Eastern world, whether it's the Christian rule or it's the Muslim rule, any rule for that matter, it always had that sense of barbarity, and somehow that principle never existed. Maybe it's because of the water of the desert which did it to them, because it's very a lot of hardship exists there. I don't know what may be the reason, but the culture which existed at times, very much a resultant of the geography, very much resultant of the climate which you live in. It makes you the way you are, and somehow the Middle East has always been like that. In the historical context, whether you talk about the other rulers before the Persian rule which existed, they were also very barbaric in the nature. The kind of when you read about the Gilgamesh, and when you read the edicts of those era, when you read about the punishment, etc., you can get the sense that how the punishments were given and how the people were treated. Perhaps the human capital had very less value, but in India, somehow human capital was always appreciated much more, and that's the reason why we never built architecture also which were too monumental. When you look at the Egypt, it built massive structure, but in India you will never find massive structure. So somehow architecture also reflect of the nature of the people. Perhaps we were very humble, we were very down to the earth compared to the other civilization which were a bit too aggressive. But coming back to this topic, I surely believe that time has come, or rather, time was always there. It's that we never cared enough. We should read the primary sources, which should at least know about that what the reality was. In fact, all these rulers have a lot of colors. Whether we talk about Akbar, we talk about Jahangir, we talk about Shah Jahan, we talk about Aurangzeb, everybody, and in fact, after him too, a lot was happening. And surely they never ruled whole of Hindustan. They always had, on an average, almost 30% of the land. So, and the rule was not even 200 years precisely. So it's not that like people say British और उससे पहले Mughals और उससे पहले कुछ था ही नहीं. There were a lot more, but somehow it has been painted that way. And this suppression of these facts, which are erupting now, has led to a lot of aggression in the people. They want to vent it out in social media. Want to vent it out. You can see it in different forms. But this is not the solution. We need to read. We need to produce books, and that can only set the discourse right. Only with the hope that even everybody, the Muslim, Hindu, whoever, the Christian, I always live with the belief that everyone in the pursuance of the truth. They might pick the truth, and you never know. Again, maybe we can get hunky dory. I am very hopeful.
Yeah, I agree. Now, just one last line I would say that like, historical figures are complex. Like, first of all, we always have to be careful about what. I'm not one of those who does not believe that current era's morality cannot be used to map and judge the people from the past. You can always judge them from that point of view, but you should always keep one thing in mind, that they were products of their time, and during that, so the best way to judge them was that were they even morally abhorrent by the moral standards of their time. And I think the Mughals were morally abhorrent even by the moral standards of their time. That's the morally abhorrent point of view. Okay, I understand that feminism as a concept did not exist at that time for the Mughals, so I'm not going to judge them on that, but there were other cultures who would treat women far better in many ways than that the Mughals would treat them. So you can judge them on even the standards of other cultures at that time, is what I'm trying to say. Similarly, many Hindu Rajas also had some morally abhorrent practices. So this is not, I mean, I think we should have a very open discussion about these things. But now I'm going to put the slides up, and I'm going to put the whole screen up for the benefit of everyone. So first slide to dikha diye. Now let's go into the second slide. Now, okay, take it over from here and tell me when to change the slide, and I'll change it.
So these slides which I have put was largely to really bring in light what she was trying to say. And again, I will like to give a benefit of doubt. Maybe just she shared in the heat of the moment, because at times when you are sitting in the new channel and you just utter at times the things which you may figure out. Oh, मैंने ये क्या बोल दिया? Because she goes on to say that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj did loot, and he was like a lutera, and the Bakhars, which are the authentic Marathi texts which talk about the historicity of the Maratha Empire. So coincidentally, anyone we have no mention of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj looting Karnataka. It never ever happened. And so the if we pick from the text itself, we can go to the next slide, Kushal bhai. So here we can. So where does the this thing of the loot comes from? This is coming from. This is actually the factory records, English factory records, and this manuscript is kept in British Library, and this also right now one can get in archive.org. But the original manuscript is stand there, and this is talking about that the Shivaji doing the loot. This is where it's come from.
So I'm just going
So
to read the source name. Manuscript volume 114, section 6, British Library, IOR, just for the audio listeners. That's all.
yes, so this is from where the text is coming from. But if we look to analyze it, right, and the moment we analyze it, the things can become clearer. If you go to the next slide where I put my analysis. So how can we rely on the so the text is an extract from the Omni manuscript, which Kushal already mentioned, and it was written by the English factors reporting the hearsay to the Surat. So it's just a hearsay. It's not a primary source, as in they have not witnessed something. They are just saying. These were not eyewitness accounts at all. Rather, they relied on the second-hand report from traders and locals, often heavily colored by political motives. Obviously, because they called all the names to the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and he was like a great threat to them too. So such report frequently equated any seizure of empty enemy-held wealth with plunder, even when Shivaji Maharaj redistributed spoils according to the Swarajya policy. So That's the distinction. So when you look at a Timurid raid, and when they make a raid, so everything was taken and it was not redistributed among the people, but it was taken for themselves. But in the contrast, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had a policy that it was redistributed among the people. So there's a strong difference. Even if you are taking the spoils, you are giving it to the people. Like I just relate it with Babur's case. When Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi, he took away all the treasures, and those treasures were not given to a single people in Delhi. And in fact, all the treasures were taken to the Samarkand, Kabul, and sent to the everybody, whoever Baba knew in the family and far off family and etc. Nothing was given to the people. So that's what the distinction. It's not so. We should not get carried away and call this as a loot. Next slide, please. So, what did, in fact, the if we look for the contemporary Marathi Bakhars like Savasar Bakhar, any Bakhar, or any Persian chronicle, in fact, Kafi Khan's Muntakab ul Lubab also talks about Shivaji's strict order that temples and Brahmins are to be protected. Devalya va Brahmana yanche rakshan karve. So this was a very much clear policy. Now European travelers also traveler accounts such as Abbe Carey, who in 1670s visited the place, describes Shivaji's reputation for sparing temples and holy sites, in a stark contrast to the Mughal and Alir Shahi depredations. I will just like to add one caveat here. So when he said that he never demolished the holy site, but Shivaji was a chad of his time, and he always believed that you have to respond the same coin. As in जिस सिक्के से बात करोगे हम उसी सिक्के से ईंट का जवाब पत्थर से देंगे. So he did destroy the mosque, but that destruction was in the response to the destruction of temples. He did it, and there it's not very trustable source, but Manuki traveler talks about it that in fact Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj also slaughtered the pig inside the masjid in response to slaughter of cow in the temple. But it's again a contemporary source, but how authentic it is we can't say. But definitely he destroyed the mosque, which were built over the temples which were destroyed. It did happen. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about Sringapatna. So Sringapatna in 1677 was under the control of the weakened Vijayanagar successor states in the Mysore Wadiyars, with heavy Timurid and Bijapuri aligned garrisons. The temples of Ranganatha remained intact during Shivaji's campaigns. There is no inscription or archaeological evidence of this desecration. There is no archaeological evidence whatsoever. Shivaji's primary objectives in the Carnatic campaign was to secure strategic forts and to establish a Maratha base in the south, not temple wealth. In fact, I will take you to the primary sources also, what they talk about. Next slide, please. So again, as I said, that looting has been misinterpreted. So English records routinely describe any war, indemnity, tribute, or enemy treasure seizure as looting. The wealth carried away likely referred to war, levies on pro-Timurid or Bijapuri garrisons, not temple treasures. Again, as I said, no contemporary Kannada or Marathi inscription record damage to the Sringanapatna temple during the period. A silence that actually speaks a volume, because you need to have some record that way. All we hear is from the secondary sources. Next slide, Kushal. Now, this is interesting. So here, if you see, and in this case, this is again coming from the Bhakar which I was talking about, and here we can clearly see that here I have not highlighted it, but in the second somewhere I'll just read it out from here so that it becomes clear. So here it's clearly talking about that the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj did instruct that the people are not to be harmed at all. The peasants, the trader, etc., are to be taken care of. This is before the raid happens or before he goes on to attack the place. So this is again coming from the Vakar itself, which is a primary source. Next slide. So here you can see I have highlighted the Raja ordered that the Rayas should not be given the least trouble. He intimidated by beheading some miscreants when he arrived at the place. So the point is that whoever was causing the trouble, and the trouble causer were the Muslims who were the supporters of the Adil Shahis, etc. Let's go ahead. Now, this is again, let's go back to the same English record. So, I'm going back to the English record which had spoken about Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj being the looter. So, what he is talking about, I don't know because this is extract from the manuscript, so maybe it's not very clearly readable, but still, I will read it out. Shivaji is at present in the Upper Carnatic, where he has taken the strong castles of Jinji is Hyderabad, then Chingavare, that is Tanjore, and the Pilkudash and the several others, and shamefully routed the Moors as in the Muslims, and this believed has robbed Sringapatnam and carried away great riches from them. And they say he designs upon his return back to the Bridor and so join Canada. So what basically is happening that a lot of Moors, as in the Muslims, have been employed who they doubt, the English are doubting that they have robbed the Srirangapatnam. It's not the typical Marathi army or the Maratha army. Now, this is coming from the same English record which alleges Shivaji of the loot. It happens once you further read, so this is what you see. Next source, please. So the same source also further tell you that now it is said that it was very disastrous. The what happened in the Carnatic or Karnataka with the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj attack, it really led to a lot of problem. But what we see is that if you read the left hand side image, the snippet, and the last line, it says that Moors leaving their fortresses upon any rumor of his approach. He is as in the Shivaji Maharaj. And
Hmm.
such is the great success that attends his army that is credibly believed he will settle and extend his dominions from near Surat to the Cap Comorin without. So what necessarily is happening that the people who are actually in trouble, see, it's not typical Kannadiga people or the typical in the south who are being troubled. It's the people, and the Moors are the people who are the supporters of the Muslim rule which exists there, and they're the Muslims themselves. So they are facing the problem because with the arrival of Shivaji, so the claim which is made that the even the Hindus, the Brahmins suffered a lot because it is completely untrue, and this is exactly been explained to the same source. This is an English record which blames Shivaji Maharaj to have looted the land, and a lot of Hindus and the Brahmins faced the persecution at his hand. It never happened. Now, next slide, please. Now, initially I said that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj actually erased slavery from the land of Karnataka, and here in the slide I have written very clearly that Herbert D. Jagger, who worked as the ambassador with the Dutch East India Company, notes that in Chhatrapati's call, that is a permit, all privileges granted by the Sher Khan on behalf of Bijapur were confirmed except the right to buy and transport slaves, since he established a fundamental rule of his government that none of his subjects may be made into slaves, let alone be sold or transported. In the same call, that is permit, issued to the Jagger, Chhatrapati makes it amply clear that the slave trade wouldn't be tolerated at any cost, he says. In the days of Moorish government, it was allowed for you to buy male slaves and female slaves here the Carnatic and to transport the same without anyone preventing it. But now you may not, as long as I am the master of these lands, buy male or female slaves, not transport them. And in case you were to do the same and would want to bring slaves aboard, my men will oppose that and prevent it in all ways, and also not allow that they be brought back in your house. This your mustas, such observe and comply with. So what we observe here is that in fact Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj liberated the people in Karnataka from the slavery. So everything which was beneficial law of the Sher Khan on the behalf of the Bijapur was applying exactly as it is. What he made the difference is that he removed the slavery. Now, from what angle can then one say that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj did exactly the same what Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar did in Chittor, or what other Timurids stood wherever they went? There is absolutely no comparison. So, see, I have a lot of. I can see that Akbar was not as Islamist as was Aurangzeb. He was rather a very smart politician. He was screwed politician, I would say, who went to any extent to even go against Islam if he has to grow in his political ambition. He was such uh, such a astute politician. But at the same time, he had some very regressive laws when it came to the female slavery, etc. Like, I'll just give an example that, in fact, under his rule, a female unveiled would be made to a prostitute. And I was surprised to know that this rule existed. And it comes from an imperial farman, as in, if a woman walks into the public without the veil, she is made to be a prostitute. If a woman tells a lie to his husband or is alleged to tell a lie, so it was a very male centric society. So if a male complains that my wife has lied to me, then she will have to perform the role of a prostitute. So these are things, again, this is coming from the primary source. Now again, then my mind goes to the point that if we are fighting so hard to see Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj at great who liberated people from slavery, we are still debating that, if but and all wo lutera the and whatnot. Here is a man whom we have given the epithet of the great, but he had such a regressive law. And any standard, a Bharatiya standard, anybody who brings such thing cannot be made a great person, right? So this point of seeing Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj as somebody almost comparing him with Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar or anybody when you call out the problems of those people is absolutely insane. You can't do it because there is no moral compass to compare the two. Like, of course, we can say that all the kings were bad and all the kings were good, but certainly not. This comparison is not done at all.
Yeah, so let's share the other bits also that you had put on Twitter about this whole thing about Akbar had a great tax system. So you shared this book,
Yes,
Muslim Civilization in India, by
SM
SM
Ikram.
Ikram and
Yes.
edited by Ainsley T. Embry. All right, so we're gonna talk about this bit. Okay, explain this bit. What is this bit about? Finances, his tax
Also,
system.
yes, so it is said that most of the people believe that Akbar again has liberated a lot of people, and in fact, he is praised for a great economy. But what I was appalled to know that the taxation was highest during the reign of Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. So he got rid of jizya, but other taxes which were put were just so bad. And in fact, we also get to know that if we further in my thread, I have also explained that Timurids were great hoarder of money, as in they used to hoard a lot of money.
Yeah, let me bring that bit up too.
Yes.
So, hoarding. You talk about. Uh, yeah, this is the bit where you talk about the hoarding of money. Let's put it up. This bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Perhaps the
So
most wasteful economic activity of the Mughal ruling class was their practice of hoarding up immense treasures. In the absence of investment opportunities, this was the most obvious way of amassing wealth, providing ready access to resources to buttress one's political power or guarantee the maintenance of a high standard of consumption for the economy. Hoarding was equivalent to siphoning off and burying so much productive resources. The late estimates Akbar's treasures at his death to be about 24.4 million florins. The treasure hoarded by nobles was almost equally staggering. In 13 years as a governor of Bengal, Shaista Khan was believed to have accumulated rupees 380 million. At a more modest level, treasures worth between 3 to 10 million are known to have been left by a number of nobles at their death. The system of escheat once believed to have encouraged savings, essentially consisted in the emperor recovering from the dead noble's assets whatever was due to the treasury and distributing the balance at his will amongst the heirs. The confiscations the claims of the state, a practice with Aurangzeb tried to stop, but the cases of total expropriation appear to have been rare. In any case, the system did not discourage hoarding.
Yes, and this is so alarming. And it takes you back. See, I'm not a firm believer in that what Angus Madison has done is very exact way to deal with how GDP would be, but it certainly gives you one parameter the way, and because so now Angus Madison gives a very interesting point. Now people quote Angus Madison like Javed Akhtar keep saying that Mughal के ज़माने में तो हमारी economy का share 1/4 of the world था and whatnot. But the same source tells us that this is the period when our GDP share dropped down drastically below China in the rule of Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. That's the first time our GDP share got down. Now, this text also gives a statistic that GDP per capita growth was negative from 1500 to 1820 CE, which is predominantly that era, what we call the Mughal era, right? And of course, it means that if they are holding this much money, if Bharat is still or Hindustan is still having a GDP share of 1/4 of the world, still almost constant. It's not depleting down. It started to deplete with the British coming in. So it means that while the wealth is en masse, but the wealth is not with the people. So as I gave the example that Babur, when defeated Ibrahim Lodi, he collected all the treasure. He took it to Kabul. It was taken to Kabul. It was sent to Samarkand. It was to all his people. So whatever they looted, or rather they extracted from the people, or informed taxes, it never really did any prosperity for the people. And Bernier, in fact, has spoken about it when he visited the Timurid court that though there's a lot of gold and the silver which flows in the empire and the court, but the people are very poor, and you never hear about. And in fact, भारत को जो सोने की चिड़िया बुलाते हैं, and it was not just कि ऐसे ही, we literally have a lot of gold wealth and people were quite wealthy enough. It was not so bad, but with the arrival of the Timurid era or the Muslim rule, particularly from the era of the Delhi Sultanate onwards, the people began to become very poor, and perhaps this Timurid era was very dark. People were becoming more and more poor, and there were policies of forced production. As in, हम ब्रिटिश के forced production के बारे में सुनते हैं, इंडिगो की खेती and whatnot. But these people also did make a lot of forced production. They used to force the farmers to grow things what they did not want to grow, and the wages were very bad. They were almost working like a bandhua mazdoor, etc., etc. So the life was certainly not a very pleasurous one. And all this information, coincidentally, I have got is from the Cambridge Economic History, which is edited by Irfan Habib and Tapan Roy Chaudhary. And this essay with the snippet which you had put across right now, this is written by Irfan Habib himself, where he critiques the Mughal Empire left and right in terms of the economic policy.
वैसे वो भी बहुत बहुत अच्छी है मुगल इकोनॉमिक ऑपरेशन आई थिंक दैट वाज ये जाडूनाथ सरकार की स्टडीज इन
That
मुगल इंडिया में थी
yes, yes, and it's from in fact again one AMU historian Shireen Mushwi. She also did a book on the Cambridge Economic History of India, if I'm not wrong, and there she also compares the taxation system, and she says that the taxes of the Mughals or Timurids were way higher than everybody. In fact, when you make the sum of all the kinds of taxes which people had to pay, and of course, jizya was bad. It was not that it was something like many people have said that made a stupid comparison that it is as good as you pay the tax, you still pay 30% tax and whatnot. But jizya was very humiliating, and in fact, you are just paying jizya because you want to remain in your faith. So, and the way the jizya was paid, jizya पे करने का तरीका भी होता था, that the person who is collecting the jizya will spit and in your hand, and that's when you give the jizya. So even the way to give the jizya was a way that you always feel humiliated.
Yeah, so let us look at these economic numbers, right?
Yes,
So look at this. Look at this. Okay, this is the trends in size of government sector. This was shared by Rupak Chakrabarti.
yes,
All right. So yes,
yes,
India had a large economy,
yes,
but the Indian GDP per capita was over 60% at the British level. By 1871, it had fallen to less than 15%. So it's
yes,
very clear that, quote, while the Mughals built some wonderful monuments, this was certainly not a period of economic miracles. It was rather a period of economic stagnation. And I'm not surprised.
yes,
And see, these figures are very obvious. Like, no matter how you try to spin this shit, like,
yes,
you just can't. The Mughals were sucking the blood uh, India, and I don't know what people have this, like, this is okay. You're talking about Angus Madison, right? This is the screen grab of Angus Madison.
yes, yes,
Look at the Great Britain GDP per capita and the Indian GDP per capita. Listen, it's quite staggering.
yes, yes. That's so true. And in fact, what was the most interesting is that Madison gave the whole comparison of the GDP per capita growth, because this is this, and when you compare the GDP per capita growth arc with the arc or the curve of GDP share,
Hmm.
it it tells you that what's happening to the people. Imagine that the GDP of a country is increasing, but GDP per capita is shrinking. So it means that पैसा तो है बट वो सही जगह पे नहीं पहुंच रहा है, और it's somewhere else. It's That's what basically what an economic disparity would look like.
Mm, yeah, and I don't understand why people have, like, Moreland has done this study, right, in of
Yes,
medieval India,
yes,
even a study in economic history from
yes,
Akbar to Aurangzeb.
yes,
I've We mentioned this last time also in our podcast.
yes,
Moreland's work. I don't
yes,
understand. It's not like people. This is actually easily available data. You just have to pick it up and read it. And the problem is, because most people don't read, these people just keep spewing the lies again and again and again and again. Like,
yes,
listen, I don't like the Peshwa taxation policy too. I can have a critique of that from a tax perspective. But there is no comparison between what the the Hindu Rajas were doing to other Rajas and what these Timurids that came into. Look, how can anyone deny that they had a religious motive? It's stupid. It
yes.
is.
I'll just give you one more example here, and let's forget religion for a while. And let's pick the case of Shah Jahan. And I have spoken about Taj's thing in the podcast when we were talking about Babur the chessboard king. That the cost was so much, and a great famine was created by Shah Jahan. It was manufactured rather, and it comes from the Lahori explaining that how the crops were destroyed, etc. And the statistics of people death comes from the Dutch record, the VOC record, etc. But it's during that famine what happened, that how much relief Shah Jahan released. It was 1 lakh rupees, and it is that time when he had gifted Muhtaj in Nowruz. It was the gift what he had given was around uh, it was summing to, so 1 lakh is 2% of the gift what he had given to Mumtaj. So you can make the comparison. Mumtaj को वो gift कर रहा है to this extent, right? So almost 50 lakh ka gift, and 1 lakh he has released for a famine relief for the famine which he himself has created. The peacock throne costed 6 crore in cash, 3 crore in cash, and so annual maintenance of Mumtaz was rupees 1 crore. And these all are the numbers exactly when the great famine of the Surat or the Deccan is happening. where it's estimated around 7.4 million people have died. So this speaks of the ruthlessness of this gives you the scale. The point is that while the Peshwa's number is very much front in our eyes that whatever used to happen, these numbers have never surfaced, or rather a detailed comparison or the analysis of this not has happened. So most of the time we talk about the Winston Churchill, but we forget to talk about the brutality of a man like Shah Jahan. He was very brutal. Like you can, and in fact, the way you treat your the subject, it really reflects of how great of a king you are. Still, people revere Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in Maharashtra. It's just not because it's not just not jingoism or anything. He meant a lot to the people, to everybody. He became like somebody whom people want to revert till long and long for many good reasons. Shah Jahan never earned it. In fact, not in his own place where he ruled. That's the reality. So that speaks that how great of the legend a person is.
So what was that work? It was by Shireen Musvi, right?
Yes,
Who analyzed the N.A. Akbari.
yes,
And what did Shireen Musvi say? If I remember, it was approximately 57%. That
yes,
was what
57%.
the state would take approximately. I don't remember the exact figure. It was 57% of the produce of the state that they would do. Are Baba, they would do the Mughals were way more extractive than the British, and the
Yes,
British sucked.
yes,
Like, imagine, we hate the British. The Mughals extracted double of what the British did.
yes,
And we say, अरे अंग्रेजों ने हमको नंगा कर दिया. अबे मुगलों ने क्या किया? God, it's like, it's so frustrating. Like, Mughals collected twice the land revenue that the British did. Twice. Who are we lying to? And why are we lying to ourselves? Like, हम पागल है क्या? हम लोगों का दिमाग खराब है. And I think this is the screen grab you had shared, right? Of Madison. I have this book because I remember. I have this book.
yes, yes,
ये वाली स्क्रीन ग्रैब तुमने शेयर की थी ना पूरी की पूरी.
yes. इसमें तीन थे यहाँ पे परसेंटेजेस में एक और मिल जाएगा.
एक ये
Yes.
है.
See, this is you see, India. It's in 1500 to 1820 is minus 0.01 was the GDP per capita growth.
They clearly screwed. They sucked the blood out of us. They were the most tax heavy regime in our entire history.
Yes.
मैं बोल रहा हूं ना, मेरे को कोई मजा नहीं आया. मैं कोई अंग्रेजों का एजेंट नहीं हूं. अंग्रेजों से बुरे थे ये. बाय एवरी ऑब्जेक्टिव मेजर द मुगल्स वर वर्स देन द ब्रिटिश. अंग्रेज हमको कुछ नहीं कर पाए जो मुगलों ने किया. हमारी क्रिपल किया हमको मुगलों ने. And you know what the worst part is? They crippled the average Indian Muslim also. So I don't know what the Muslim is celebrating there. It's insane.
Yes.
इंदिरा गांधी ने 90% टैक्सेशन की इंस्पिरेशन मुगलों से ही ली थी क्या?
She just doubled it.
90% टैक्स मारती थी इंदिरा गांधी.
Yes.
But यार मतलब when will history in this country be studied without emotions? When? अभी अगर कोई बोल देना कि अंग्रेजों ने किया था मगर वो मुगलों जितने बुरे नहीं थे, तो कोई ना कोई आ जाएगा, ये आ गया गोरों का एजेंट. अरे गोरों का एजेंट कहां से हो गया भाई? मैं तो सच बता रहा हूं.
In fact, it's very appalling that the GDP per capita was again was British ruled us, but statistics say that it was relatively better than the era of the Timurids, if we have to believe those numbers and
मगर
statistics.
है ही फैक्ट है.
Yes,
अंग्रेजों के टाइम पे, मैं थोड़ी ना बोल रहा हूं अंग्रेजों ने हमारा उद्धार किया, उन्होंने भी हमारा खून चूसा, मगर अंग्रेज इतने बारबेरिक नहीं थे. वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट, यू रिमेंबर वो हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया एज टोल्ड बाय इट्स हिस्टोरियंस, एलियट एंड डॉसन की बुक,
yes,
ठीक है?
yes,
उसमें वो स्टार्ट में क्या लिखता है? एलियट एंड डॉसन वर राइट. उन्होंने क्या बोला, अरे भाई हमको तुम गाली देते हो, ये देखो इन्होंने क्या किया है.
Yes.
हम तो कुछ नहीं है इनके आगे. It was an apology for the Britishers, but it was magical to read it. I was like, ये देखो, ये पढ़ो. And ये, और
Yes.
it's, I have forgotten so many things because ये सब यार 10-10 15-15 साल पहले चीजें पढ़ी हुई हैं. जब शौक होता था हिस्ट्री पढ़ने का, उसके बाद छोड़ दिया हिस्ट्री पढ़ना. मैंने तो छोड़ दिया. अच्छा, तुम लोग जैसे लोग अभी पढ़ते हो. मेरे को तो अभी वो पुरानी पुरानी चीजें कुरेद कुरेद के याद करनी पड़ती हैं. क्या लोग हैं यार, मतलब इट इज सो रिडिकुलस. हाउ डज, मेरे को लास्ट क्वेश्चन है, एंड देन वी विल टेक अ फ्यू ऑडियंस क्वेश्चंस, लाइक हाउ डज वन हैव अ मैच्योर डिस्कशन ऑन हिस्ट्री इन दिस कंट्री?
Yes, it's actually quite problematic because problem क्या होता है? I just give you an example. अब कर्नल टोड, जेम्स टोड ने किताब लिखी है राजपूतों के ऊपर, and the annals of Rajputana, and somehow he exaggerated a lot of things too. And out of those exaggeration also came up the character of Jodhabai, and so did happen the story of Karnavati and Humayun Rakhi. Many things happened, and so he also brought the story of Akbar weighing Janu and all. So once I also believed in that tale of the Janu wala thing, but I could not find any primary source whatsoever for it because that number is quite huge. Because when you do the maths, like it's very tough to really say that पुष्वामित्र सांगा ने इतने स्तूप गिराए होंगे कि नहीं, क्योंकि अगर जितने नंबर बोलते हैं गिराए उस हिसाब से then he would have to destroy one stupa every 6 hours of his reign, which is humanly impossible. So likewise, when you do the maths of this, that also does not sum up. Now, when these kind of sources do exist, which were doing nothing but fulfilling the duty to or fulfilling their KRA to their reporting managers, that's what they were doing. Whether it Anas Beveridge Sujan, who translated Babar Nama, you can see the bias. You can see the biases, and somehow the story goes in a certain way. And there is no one who is going to come and check and say, "Hey, what you have done is wrong." And when this exists, Kushal bhai, there's always a fear that how we are going to really debate the history. Because when I say primary source, many people pick translation as a primary source. हाँ वही शायद primary source है, but all these translations were the resultant of the reporting to the reporting managers whom they reported to, and they had their biases. So, how do we solve it out? I know that Akbar has problem, but Akbar did not had that problem of that so many every time Janu he will wait. It never happened. So it again goes to that the moment I will bring this out, maybe that I will become an Akbar apologist if I say that वो truthful नहीं है. That's how people want. People only pick two sides. इधर आप this side हो उस side हो.
इधर वो प्योर इविल है, यहाँ तो मेरे को कंफ्यूज मत करो.
Yes, so that's where the problem lies. And the job of a historian, I am not a historian by qualification, but I write book on history, so I can at least say that I am a history enthusiast who take it very seriously. But for me, it's the data and the facts and the primary sources from the tarikhs, etc. In this case, what really matters. It really does not matter what somebody says 200 years down the line. And trust me, of course, we will talk soon about my new book of Babur also. And the information which I will talk put about the Babri, it may startle a lot of people. Babri Masjid, Babri, वो वाली बाबरी की तो बात हो गई थी पिछले बार. Now it will really, it has got a lot of revelation, and maybe that it has got of learning for both right and left to think about that. Truth does not owe to anybody. It's truth is truth. So I don't know how we will discuss it. It's very pertinent question, but जैसे मैंने बोला कि मैं टीवी देखना छोड़ दिया हूँ. I don't watch news at all because it's otherwise secondary sources become
नहीं,
you
मैं भी
saw
टीवी
that.
नहीं देखता यार. जब कोई टीवी की क्लिप आ जाती है ना सोशल मीडिया पे, देन यू स्टार्ट डिगिंग इन, एंड आई थिंक सम थिंग्स डिजर्व टू बी डिबंक्ड.
Yes,
So
yes,
the only reason I decided to debunk this is, I mean, Amit also did, this Mughals ने बाहर पैसा नहीं भेजा। और शर्म कर लो यार। एक आई वांट टू शेयर दीस इमेजेस। अमित शांडिलिया ने भी बहुत अच्छा ये थ्रेड किया था, बहुत टाइम क्या मेरे को याद रहती है ये चीजें, तो मैं जब निकालता हूँ तब निकालता हूँ। ये बुक अमित ने दिखाई थी, ये फ्रांसुआ बर्नियर, ही वाज अ कंटेम्पररी।
Yes, yes, yes.
So we have seen how in Indies the gold and silver disappear in consequence of the tyranny of timorites, governors, and revenue contractors, a tyranny which even the monarch, if so disposed, has no means of controlling in provinces not contiguous to his capital, a tyranny often so excessive as to deprive the peasant and artisan of the necessaries of life and leave them to die of misery and exhaustion, a tyranny owing to which those wretched people either have no children at all or have them only to endure the agonies of starvation and to die at a tender age, a tyranny, in fine, that drives the cultivator of the soil from his wretched home to some neighboring state in hopes of finding milder treatment, or to the army, where he becomes the servant of some trooper. Like this is a fascinating thread by Amit, where he shows point after point. Like he shows how 430,000 rupees a year for 7 years to one king in Kashgan alone were gifted, no less, like in 1668. It's fascinating. It's a very good thread that he shares in Delhi, and this is the source of the book, the Mughal period.
Oh yes.
Wolseley Haig की यार ये लोग को लगता है कि लोग अभी पढ़ेंगे नहीं क्या? इनका नंगा फैक्ट नहीं निकालेंगे?
यार आप ये सोच के देखो, there was a saying in Makkah that whenever a caravan comes from Hindustan, as in Mughals भेजते थे, so people would flock around in Makkah because पैसे आ रहे हैं हिंदुस्तान से.
ये वो एग्जैक्टली ये वही है, शायद ये वही है.
Yes, yes.
The fame of India as a soft milch cow spread throughout the Middle and Near East, and the minor embassies were merely begging expeditions, as Bernier shrewdly noted. The Sharif of Makkah, in particular, used to send his agents to the Delhi court every year with the object of levying contributions in the name of the Prophet, till at last the emperor's patience was worn out and he refused to make the Sharif his almoner at the holy city, but began to send his gifts to its scholars and mendicants through his own agents. बोलो, इनको मालूम था कि ये मतलब ये कैसा मालूम है? दिस इज सच टिपिकल, मेरे को तो तुम्हारा चाहिए, तुम्हारा अप्रूवल चाहिए, मैं कितना शाना है, मैं कितना पैसे वाला है. आई मीन कितने दिखाए ये देखो, बहुत अच्छा काम किया है अमित शांडिलिया ने. हिज पॉलिसी वाज टू डैजल द आईज of these princes by lavish gifts or presents to them and to their envoys, and thus induce the outer Muslim world to forget his treatment of his father and brothers.
Yes.
Shabash. This is clear, matlab, this is clear case of bribing people.
Yes.
I mean, क्या कर रहे हो यार?
Yes, and you know this thing of sending money to the Makkah has a very good, strong link to creation of Dine Ilahi, because when Akbar was trying to lure these sharifs in Makkah, and finally the Ottomans figured it out and they kicked Akbar hard, and that's when Akbar thought that यहाँ दाल गलने वाली नहीं है, I can't become the caliph, and then he thought that let's create a new deen or new religion, and that's where the idea of Dine Ilahi erupted. So he was a smart ass. If you look at it that way, he knew that I can't become the caliph, so let's do the different way.
Yeah, I mean, और torture करो लोगों को. The economic history of India.
Yes.
Wages of skilled works. Pelserat gives the figure of 5 to 6 takas, that is 4 to 5 Dutch stivers, for artisans in all classes wages. Moreland considers that word taka is presumably Tanka, but is used by Pelserat for the dam. That this is inaccurate. Taka is the tack of Sir Thomas Herbert, 1627 to 28, who mentions that 20 tak make 1 rupee. This is the double dam. Similarly, John Marshall specifically 1668 to 1672 mentions 1 taka equal to 2 pice. This taka is not tanka. 5 to or 6 takas will be equivalent to 10 to 12. Now, what is the point Amit is making? Average Swell, they did not spend a lot of money on upliftment of anything. ये खून चूसू थे साले. स्किल्ड वर्कर की भी मारते थे बैठ के.
Yes. Yes,
So,
yes,
so
there
what
were.
are we talking about?
So the moment we get into the economy of this rule, and that's where my journey to look into the history began of the Timurids. It's like British will just fade out. They are nobody in front of these atrocious people. They were
Yeah.
class apart.
Another book that everybody should read, the
Yes,
Akbar Nama of Abu al Fazal, Volume 3, translated from Persian by H. Beveridge.
yes, and
ये भाई ये हर एक आदमी को पैसे भेजता रहता था, इसको बस और कुछ था
it,
नहीं लाइफ में, हर एक को पैसा भेजते रहने का,
so
मन में
it's
आया पैसा भेजो, मन में आया पैसा भेजो.
a lot of money was sent, and a lot of money was invested also to get back Samarkand because Mughals still or the Timurids never saw Hindustan as their home, and it comes from, and in fact this becomes very clear. So this time, see, last time when I was doing the introduction of Babur the Chessboard King, I spoke about Taj Mahal because I want to give something extra to the people so that uske allow. This time I have given the chapter to explain that how Timurids never saw Hindustan as their home. Their heart was always for the Samarkand, and there was a huge investment which was happening to loot the people, to do the bulk campaign, to just ensure that if they can reach back. And every son will be talking about his father that he wants to fulfill the dream of his father to go back to the Samarkand.
Yeah. Another book, the Tabaqat-e Akbari of Khwaja Nizamuddin Ahmad,
Yes,
Volume 2. Look at the gifts. Sultan Khwaja, who was the son of Khwaja Khayan Mahmud, was honored by being made Mir Haji of the caravan of pilgrimage, and a sum of 6 lakhs of rupees in cash and
yes,
commodities was made over to him for the fakirs and other deserving persons of the two sacred places. And an order was passed that the traveling expenses of anybody who might intend to perform a pilgrimage to the sacred places should be paid, and an immense number of people attained to this happiness. What has that got to do with any of Indian issues? Oh, didn't send any money outside India. अबे उस
bulk,
टाइम पे 6-6 लाख रुपए किसको बोलते
yes,
हैं?
yes,
ये आज मेरी सरकार करे, तेरा दिमाग खराब. आज जो तुम रेवड़ी कल्चर सब बातें करते रहते हो, ये रेवड़ी कल्चर ऑन स्टेरॉइड्स था.
yes,
एंड रेवड़ी होना कि अपने इंटरनल लोगों के लिए साला खून अपने लोगों का चूसे और बाहर पैसे भेज दे अपनी
yes.
अपनी इमेज मैनेजमेंट के लिए. ये वो हो रहा है. चलो अभी क्वेश्चन लेते हैं एंड देन वी विल रैप अप. सो किसी ने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा था, one question about Karnataka campaign by Shivaji Maharaj in Karnataka. Pro Kannada activists claim that Shivaji Maharaj looted Sringeri Sharada Peeth too, apart from Srirangapatna. Is this true?
No, not at all. So, in fact, all these are hearsays from the English factory record. There is no primary sources for this, and no Barker talk about it. No Kannada text of that period. Nothing talks about it. In fact, as I stated, he liberated the people of Karnataka from the slavery. He was the one who said that now I'm the master, you can't do the slavery. Please get lost. The Moors are not the rulers. I'm the master, so no slavery. So who liberated the people? Who, you should be filled with the praise if you're a Kannada activist for a man who liberated you from the slavery. But क्या कहना?
Abhas, when is part 2 of Babur coming?
31st July.
Okay. मैंने पढ़ी नहीं है क्योंकि तेरी 2 बुक पढ़नी है मेरे को, तो थोड़ा टाइम ले रहा हूं मैं.
Yes, no worries.
The Akbar glorification in historical narratives is the most Stockholm syndrome thing I've ever seen. As though, although he singularly redeems the barbarism. I mean, I think Akbar ke bare mein we should have a. My view has always been we should have a balanced view on him. Okay. Was distortion done deliberately by historians to appease Muslims, or they seriously stupid, or they think Muslims are secular? Maybe it is a bit of all. They were
Yes,
stupid, they wanted to appease them, and they genuinely thought they were secular.
yes, perhaps.
Yeah, but why? Because why would we have, do that? Like, why would we have to believe either or theory? Like,
Yes.
I don't know.
No, it's no point believing in it. But Shashi Tharoor himself said once with a debate with Vikram or Harsh Madhusudan that It was deliberately done to keep that hunky
If
dory.
तू इंडिया टुडे डिबेट की बात कर रहा है जिसमें
Yes,
हर्ष was like that if there ever was a TKO that was a TKO debate. हर्ष ने बहुत बुरा किया. हर्ष के साथ था वो.
yes, yes. I recall.
I think it's I have never understood why the truth would be problematic. I have never understood that.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yes,
very
it
good
should.
question. Was Mughal taxing and bleeding India a period when Indian diet became grain heavy and caste endogamy became even more prevalent? Listen, caste endogamy from genetic record starts during the Gupta period at its peak, and then it pretty much stays standard since then. But I don't think so. That has got something to do with what the Mughals did. The Mughals were just blood sucking vampires. Even if India was a non-endogamous society, I don't think the Mughals would have not done what they did. They ended up doing. How does it matter? For the Mughal, you were just a kafir at the end of the day. So this is
Oh,
my answer. I don't know what Abbas
you
thinks.
you have to read about the Mughal text or their namas to read that how much birth matters to them. So the army setup used to be that जहाँ जिसका बाप खड़ा होता था उसका बेटा वहीं खड़ा होगा आगे में because it's his birthright. So this was a small example. There was so much of prevalent casteism in these the Timurids. It was very strong. In fact, the way the people would sit in the court, too, the way they stand in the army, the what they pick to fight. Agar if you're a smaller birth, you will get a smaller. So there's a lot to it if you read about it, and you will at times feel that perhaps their casteism was even more uglier. I don't know. No casteism can be compared with good or bad, but just in case if you want to make a comparison, you will see that the by the birth thing was so prevalent. You'll always see that of a good birth, of great birth. ये सब बहुत सारी बातें आएंगी उनके टेक्स्ट में.
Hmm. But what do they mean? Like great birth meaning from an aristocratic family, right?
Yes, yes, from aristocratic family or something to better do of royal or something like that.
Got it. That I think is a cross cultural thing. There is nothing unique in one culture that is not obsessed with aristocracy. I mean, even as per the Greeks, I think was it the Greek model of democracy was not really a democracy. It was
Yes,
voting rights for only for men and for
and
aristocrats
yes,
and for
yes,
aristocrats.
yes.
They're like
Athenian
people
democracy.
who philosophers were allowed to vote. Nobody
Yes,
else was allowed to vote. So that only those people were allowed, and so that's it. Yeah, there is no other question. There were comments which I'm not interested in taking. So before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to add?
not much. I think that we will soon discuss about the two books,
Two
Hitler
books. Yeah.
and
So the both the books, obviously बाबर पहला पार्ट अगर नहीं पढ़ी है किसी ने तो वो भी पढ़ लेना. बाकी part 2 is coming on 31st July, and I mean, I have the first parts link in the description, uh, because I'll be doing a different podcast about the second part. And the Babar book is coming with Penguin, right? And the
yes,
other book on,
the blue one,
yeah, with Blue One. What's the name of that book?
the Hitler, the proclaimed Messiah of Palestinian cause.
Okay. Yeah, वो मैं पढ़ना शुरू कर चुका हूँ. That I'm reading already. So that when does that come out? Like और कि वो आ गई है
Uh,
तेरी book?
5th August.
5th August. So वाह, एक दो बुक एक एक के बाद एक.
Yes, somehow a challenge, but how to talk about it? इसको preference दो या उसको? But I think it's
दोनों की पॉडकास्ट करेंगे अगले महीने. दोनों की पॉडकास्ट करेंगे अगले महीने. We'll do both the books. I'll first finish the Hitler book, then I'll do Babar because मेरे को टाइम लगेगा दोनों पढ़ने में, and मैं बिना पढ़े नहीं करता.
yes,
मैं चीटिंग नहीं करता बाकी पॉडकास्टर जैसे. सो मैं पढ़ूंगा आराम से, शांति से पढ़ूंगा और फिर उसको कवर करूंगा. So guys, as always, follow Aabhas on X, buy his books. Just go on Amazon. I think Kindle version of the previous book of Babar is also available along with the hard copy. And my book, if you want to buy Nastic, go buy Nastic on Amazon too. If you want to support the Charvak podcast, the best way to support is through the membership program. Whether you become a member on YouTube or on Patreon, just consider joining the membership program. It's a small monthly donation that helps me go a long way. And it helps us doing these deep dives where, when you have a monthly support system, you don't have to bother about what's trending or what's not trending. You can actually do deep dives and do justice. You can also send one-time donations, whether through Interac Canada, which is kushalmehra81@gmail.com, or through UPI in India, kushalmehra at ICICI. You can buy Charvak podcast merchandise. All the details are there. If you can't do anything, just like this video, subscribe to the Charvak podcast YouTube channel, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're an audio listener, do consider leaving a rating on your preferred audio platform. Keep following the Charvak podcast and keep supporting the Charvak podcast. I'll see you guys with another interesting discussion. Until then, namaste.